is leader of the opposition. Why aren't you opposing the government? Traitor!
Protesters shouted traitor and accused the Labour leader of protecting paedophiles.
Breaking, London has descended into a state of utter turmoil. What began earlier this evening as a small contained demonstration has spiraled with devastating speed into a full-blown urban uprising, a stark and humiliating collapse of state control. Before our eyes, the capital is experiencing a breath-by-breath disintegration of governmental authority. The line between law and chaos has vanished, not broken, dissolved as police units scatter or are simply swallowed by the sheer scale of what they face. Widespread but unverified reports, now circulating everywhere, suggest more than 50,000 people have surged through London's major arteries, overwhelming every policing contingency and driving steadily, relentlessly toward Westminster. This is no longer a situation, it is a city consumed. And it all began the moment Prime Minister Keir Starmer made a single catastrophic choice to meet dissent with force. The instant that order left his desk, the government lost the narrative and then the streets. The stakes now stretch far beyond public order. They touch the very question of whether the British state can weather what has been unleashed. Tonight, we trace the minute-by-minute unravelling of a nation's social contract. A sequence of events so rapid and violent, it has pushed the country toward its most dangerous crossroads in living memory. Stay with us, 8:04 p.m. The first break in the chain, the turning point came at exactly 8:04 p.m. A command, not issued through public announcements or press channels, but spoken through encrypted communications, left the Gold Command Centre. Its instructions were cold and uncompromising. Push them back. Clear the square, whatever it takes. Inside the Situation Room at 10 Downing Street, Prime Minister Starmer watched events unfold with an unnervingly stoic detachment. On the main screen, a drone feed displayed a sea of bodies. Around 3,000 demonstrators, packed tightly across Whitehall, facing a thin, rigid line of public order police in full armour. The room itself was suffocatingly silent, broken only by the whir of machines and the restless shuffling of aides, who dared not speak as they awaited the Prime Minister's signal. Starmer remained absolutely still, his eyes locked on the immediate threat. Seemingly unaware of how rapidly events were slipping beyond control, the advance and the miscalculation police moved first, encased in riot gear that looked closer to military plating than civilian equipment. They advanced in a perfect shield wall. Heavy boots striking the soaked pavement in a deliberate threatening cadence. A unified roar of "move back" thundered off the stone buildings of Whitehall, a classic time-tested flex of state power. But tonight, fear found no purchase. The crowd didn't flinch, didn't step back, didn't break. They simply stared down the line, a silent refusal that signaled something far more dangerous. The people no longer feared the system arrayed against them. The stage was set and the government had just committed to its first irreversible step. The crowd turns and the line fails normally. The psychological shock of a police push is enough. Not tonight. A low primal growl began to rise from the packed mass of demonstrators, swelling into a unified, furious roar. The chant ricocheted against the Treasury and Foreign Office. "We are not leaving." Inside Downing Street, the tension tightened like a vice. The police advance stalled. The line, supposedly unbreakable, pressed forward into a wall of bodies that refused to budge. Instead of dispersing the crowd, the maneuver snapped the last thread holding the situation together. Then everything changed. The flare, the moment the night exploded from deep in the heaving crowd, something flew upward, a small burning streak tearing across the black sky. This wasn't a bottle, not a stone. It was a magnesium flare, belching bright crimson fire. Time seemed to slow as it arced downward, landing between two frontline officers. What followed was instant devastation, a flash of searing light and concussive sound. Horses panicked, throwing riders, the police formation shattered. The orderly rhythm of the shield wall collapsed into screaming confusion. The push-back strategy had failed violently, publicly, irreversibly, and the crowd moved as one, fueled by adrenaline and fury. Thousands surged forward like a human tidal wave. Barricades were ripped from concrete. Objects became weapons. 2 police vans by the cenotaph were engulfed in flames within minutes, their twisted frames glowing as harsh reminders of how quickly control had evaporated. Whitehall was gone, and the government's gamble had ignited a conflagration, the digital collapse. A faster enemy than fire as the physical front crumbled. A more lethal threat was spreading at light speed, the raw, unfiltered truth. Mainstream broadcasters, BBC, Sky, were still clinging to hours-old footage, parroting sanitized reports about minor unrest. A blackout, deliberate or not, was underway, but the world was already watching the real London. Within 3 minutes of the magnesium explosion, shaky vertical videos hit X, TikTok, Telegram, millions of eyes witnessing the breakdown of the state in real time. One clip, filmed from an upper flat, detonated across the internet. A police van, windows smashed. Trapped in a sea of people, then a Molotov spiraling through its fractured windscreen. The interior burst into flame. Caption: London has fallen. The video hit 1 million views in 5 minutes. This wasn't just information. This was a weapon, and it obliterated any hope the government had of controlling the story. When national television abruptly switched to a technical difficulty screen, the public didn't buy it. They knew exactly what was happening. The state wasn't protecting them. It was hiding from them. That silence poured petrol on an already blazing fury. Systems collapse. The state loses its voice. The situation mutated with terrifying speed. The Metropolitan Police Comm system, built to survive terror attacks, began to choke under its own usage. It wasn't hacked, it drowned. Code Zero alerts, officers in immediate mortal danger, hit the network so rapidly that dispatchers couldn't separate them. The chain of command dissolved into static. Officers on the ground found only dead air in their earpieces. No guidance, no orders, no backup. For many, that silence confirmed the worst. They were on their own. Meanwhile, strategic crossings. Waterloo, Blackfriars, London Bridge fell to coordinated groups, sealing off central Westminster and trapping tens of thousands inside the exclusion zone. Downing Street had become a fortress awaiting the inevitable. And then came the news that changed everything. This wasn't confined to London, Birmingham, Manchester. Leeds, Bristol, Liverpool, 5 major cities reporting synchronized uprisings. Same chants, same images, same rejection of authority. This was no riot. This was a national breakdown of obedience. Parliament Square, the final stand by the small hours. The chaos converged on the symbolic centre of power, Parliament Square and the cenotaph. The last remaining unit of Metropolitan Police, roughly 40 officers, found themselves pinned against the iron railings of the Palace of Westminster. In front of them, 5,000 enraged citizens. A ratio so hopeless it borders on myth, on officer for every 125 people. The air crackled with smoke and the deafening chant. Whose streets? Our streets, radio orders barked. Hold your ground, but it was fantasy. A command detached from reality. And then, the moment that broke the country occurred. A single officer, standing near the statue of Churchill, simply stopped. While debris rained down, he unclipped his riot shield. Clang. The shield hit the wet ground, a sound that cut through the chaos like a gunshot. The nearest protesters froze. They expected resistance. Instead, they witnessed surrender. One officer dropped his shield, then another, then an entire line. The thin blue line didn't shatter, it melted. The veterans, the last moral authority as the government prepared to unleash Operation Temper, the deployment of the British Army. Something unexpected happened. A group of veterans wearing old regimental berets walked calmly into the no man's land between the mob and the soldiers. One veteran approached a frightened young private, looked him in the eyes and said, "If you fire tonight, you lose this country forever." And the soldier listened. Not to his radio, but to the man in front of him. The confrontation ended not through force, but through moral authority. The riot was over, but the British social contract lay in pieces, scattered among abandoned shields and broken glass. Dawn, the cost morning light revealed a city scarred beyond recognition. Police morale hadn't cracked, it had evaporated. Riot gear lay discarded across Parliament Square, the most enduring symbol of a state, unable to uphold its own authority. Order wasn't restored by the state, not by the army, not by Downing Street. It was restored by ordinary people, stepping between two sides on the brink of civil conflict. And that leads to the second tragedy: trust. The backbone of a functioning democracy had been obliterated. A government that attempts to blind the public cannot expect the public to obey. The footage of the police surrender spread 10 million times in 10 minutes. The message was unmistakable. The system can break, and it has broken. The authorities will try to dismiss this as a moment of thuggery. But what they fear most is not the violence, it is the memory. The images have been seen, the evidence has been saved, and the question echoing through Whitehall now is not about cleanup, it is about recurrence. Was last night an aberration or a warning, a rehearsal for something far worse? The legacy of fragility this night stripped away the veneer of stability and exposed a deeper illness, a systemic fragility woven through the institutions of British democracy. The police collapse was not the cause. It was the symptom. The true failure lay in a government that believed obedience could be engineered through suppression and silence. What halted the descent into disaster was not state power, but the wisdom of veterans who understood a simple truth: when the state loses legitimacy, the people become the last safeguard. And for the British public, the lesson is brutal but essential. Do not depend blindly on institutions that have already betrayed your trust. The social contract isn't a document. It's a decision, renewed or withdrawn, day by day. You have witnessed the system fail. You have watched the government attempt to bury the evidence. Now, the choice falls to you. Rebuild trust through scrutiny and vigilance, or slip back into the comfortable lie that order is permanent. Because the price of liberty has always been the same: eternal vigilance, especially when those in power try to dim the light.